Exactly 40 days ago, I took upon myself a challenge to work on my comic book for the next 100 days. And after having gone through almost 1/3 of the challenge, I felt like I haven't accomplished that much. And that's because of my complete inability to look at the bright side of life. So here's what I've actually done and learned in the past 40 days of making comics. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the story, creating a rough outline for the comic, and building the characters and the true world around it with my friend Sashi. I've locked in on the design of my main characters while finishing 3 illustrations in the process of doing it. I filled up 3 sketchbooks with drawings and sketches, which I turned into a 12-page PDF for my patrons on Patreon, #plug. I finally started using a planner for the first time in my entire life so that I can schedule my days and get ish done instead of wasting my time. I've created 5 episodes for this making comics project, and boy did that take a lot of time. And I've also gone from wasting all of my days on pointless crap to just some of my days on pointless crap. I've also learned to be patient with my projects, set mini goals, take one step at a time, finish 2 seasons of Friends, and most importantly, focus on finishing things rather than trying to perfect things, which ultimately led me to finish 2 out of the 24 pages I've planned on doing for this comic book project. 2. I finished 2 pages. That's a lot of, that's progress. Took a lot of time, and boy, I'm happy I finished. Dude, let's get into the show. So one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, and something I'm constantly hearing from a lot of professional artists who've been doing this thing called art for decades, is the importance of finishing things. To play your game and to finish your projects, to work on your projects in such a way that you place a lot of emphasis on finishing the project rather than trying to perfect it or trying to make it better. And the conversation that I had earlier this week with James, aka the box office artist, really, hit that idea into my little head. By the way, this is a big head actually. I have a very big head, so yeah. Anyway, we hit it into the head. Good?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty good.
Okay, great.
Do you have video? Yeah, pretty clear. Hi.
Okay.
The camera's pointed at you right now, so you can say hi to, I don't know, YouTube or something.
Oh, are you live already?
Yeah, not on YouTube, but my camera's at you, pointed at you right now.
Okay.
So I'm just like recording and doing this thing.
Hi, fans of Kesh.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So for those who don't know who James is, James, aka the box office artist here on YouTube, is a pretty cool dude with a big heart and a big smile. And a big laugh too. He's got a very big laugh. I like that. So other than being a pretty cool dude with a big laugh, he is a professional illustrator, he's a YouTuber, he's a teacher, he's a digital matte painter, he's worked on tons and tons of television projects, tons and tons of movie projects, and he's been a graphic novel illustrator for 15 years. That's more than how long I've been drawing. You see, I am a young lad. I'm a young guy. I'm just doing art. I'm just doing this thing for like a very short amount of time, like 3 to 5 years. And he's been doing art professionally for more like 20 years or so. So I really wanted to, during our conversation, dig in, gain some insight or wisdom from the experiences he has gained from his 2 decades of doing this thing. So this is the question I asked him. Like, what do you say to, someone who's young, who's starting out, like people who watch my channel and all that? Like, what do you say? I know this is a very broad question. I'm asking you a lot of big, broad questions, and it's very hard for you to answer. I'm guessing that.
No, actually, that's a very easy question to answer because, and me too. Like, I get that a lot from a lot of young artists. Like, what's number one advice? And my number one advice is patience. Patience at the end of the day. That's the biggest thing, because especially nowadays, let's just say it's different than when I was growing up, right?
That's right. Totally.
Back in my day. Today, it's so much easier to get your work out there into the public. It's so easy. Like I've been talking to some Instagram artists. They already have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they're like 18. Stuff like that. It's so easy. But the tools that are available, it's way better than what I had when I was your age, for example, when I was back in the day, right? So when I was working in comics, if you wanted to make a name in art, you actually had to work on a comic book, right? But today, it's a little different now. You can find an audience without doing that today, right? So the number one thing is patience. I know, like with some of the younger generation, it's more like I want to do it now, I want to do it now. But the reality is that all of you have a lot of time. There's a lot of time. Right? A lot of time to hone your craft. There's no real rush for all of this stuff. Like, all of it will come in time. The main key is the more you work on things, the better you're going to get at it. So instead of focusing on trying to get that end goal right away, I would focus on the smaller goals that will bring you towards that goal. My main suggestion for you, especially you putting it together your comic book. Following you said that you wanted 24 pages in 100 days. Was that it?
Yeah, 24 pages. It's a very small goal.
Yes, 24 pages in 100 days.
I don't even know how that works. Yes,
my number one advice for you is to finish it. Right? That is the biggest advice, because it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be exactly how you want it to be, and that's with all artists, no matter what levels. Everything never turns out exactly 100% what you envisioned. In fact, after 24, you're going to look back at page 1. You're like, I can't believe I drew that page 1. I'm going to go back and change that page 1. And then most part, when you get to page 100, when you finish your whole graphic novel, you will go back to 24. Like, what was I thinking at page 24? I don't. But that's what we do as artists, because every single day, the more we practice, the more hours we put into something, we're going to grow. We're going to get better. I wouldn't be too concerned about getting things perfect, especially at this point. It's more about having fun and then finishing what you start at the end of the day.
Wow.
Right?
This is what I did. I took his advice and rolled with it and started working on the first page of my comic book. Instead of waiting till day 50 to start my project, and I don't want to wait anymore. I'm just going to roll with it and just going to figure stuff out while I'm doing this thing. Okay, started off by deciding the size of the paper that I wanted to illustrate my comic book on, because I really didn't want to do this portrait normal size thing, which felt kind of long to me, you know. So I thought I really wanted to pick my own dimension. So bought a bunch of chart papers from a local art shop, which is like 12 rupees a piece. That's like $0.25. I don't know the exact conversion. So that, you know, I bought those things. So one, because they're really thick, and two, I can actually select my own dimensions. So after doing some research on some of the comic books that I own and some of the comic books that are available online, looking at their dimensions, I settled on 16.5 by 12.7 inches of dimension. After locking on the size of the paper, I decided to illustrate the first 2 pages of my comic book. I haven't written the entire chapter that I want to illustrate, but the thing is, I have an idea, a rough idea of what's going to be there on the first 2 pages, which is going to be mostly illustrations, and know the dialogues that's going to be there, not a dialogue, it's a monologue actually. And I know the main character, which is going to be on that sheet, which is the first page. And so I just started illustrating, started thumbnailing on my sketchbook, trying to get an idea of the layout that I wanted to have on that page. So once I got that, I started using my 3H pencil and started doing the rough guidelines on the main sheet of paper, and just slowly and but steadily erased. Did a lot of erasing this time, man. Like, I did not expect that. Did a lot of erasing, did a lot of refining, and locked in on the final pencils of the character and moved on to the inking. Let me give you a fair warning. This video is going to be filled with a lot of traffic sounds and noises and bus horns and vehicle horns. So with that said, let's get into the thingy. Here's the biggest mistake I've been making, or I've made in the past 40 days of making comics. In the 40 days of making comics, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've failed so many times, and I've learned a lot. But the thing is, the biggest mistake I've been making is spending way too much time making these videos rather than actually making the comic, which this series is all about making comics. Rather, I've been focused on making videos rather than making comics. That's not a cool thing. So what I've been doing is I'm trying to lower the amount of time I spend on making these videos and slowly increasing the time I put on making comics. So that's why I introduced this thing called the 66 days of productivity. This sort of personal challenge I've put into my own 100 days of making comics thingy, where I am forced or not forced. I will be sitting down every single day for 5 blocks of 33 minutes of focused, undistracted, deep work, and just work on my comic book or work on the video editing process. But mostly 3 out to 4 out of those 5 blocks of time should be spent on making comics, when some of the time should be spent on making the video. These things, right, these videos, these episodes that you're seeing right now take anywhere from like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours to edit, a couple of hours of pre-production, and usually that would, you know, be spent over the span of 3 to 4 days, and not a good thing, you know, when you just have 7 days in a week and you spend 4 days making a video and 3 days making comics, right? So that's what I've been doing. I'm trying to refocus and reassess the situation in this thing. One of the reasons I started 100 Days of Making Comics is to establish a deep work practice, meaning me sitting down every single day to work on a certain project that I just declared and just work on it, focus, concentration, and effort. That's the main reason I started 100 Days of Comics. You know, it's a habit formation thingy, right? You do something for 100 days, you eventually, you know, end up doing it more than 100 days. I'm slowly putting more effort into finishing things rather than trying to get to finishing things. You get what I mean? I'm like really focused these days on the finished product, which is, you know, trying to get a page done. So that's what I've been trying to do, trying to lessen my perfectionistic tendencies and just like focus less on how the product looks like rather and more on, you know, finishing the product. And I have learned from, you know, James, like talking with James and talking with people like Jake Parker, you know, they all seem to say the same damn thing, like, hey, you got a lot of time, you know, you've got like, you know, you for the next 20 years you just focus on finishing products or projects or, you know, books and things that are at your like 70 to 80% of your effort. You don't have to put 95, you don't have to put 98%. You know, focus on rather just like make 10 projects that are at like 75-80% effort rather than 2 projects at 98% effort. You know, I kind of believe that. I kind of believe that volume is more the key in the early process of learning something or making something. So that's what I've been doing, like trying to finish things. I have a card on my desk that says macro patience, micro speed, which is something I stole from Gary Vaynerchuk, who he's an entrepreneur, CEO, a very motivational, inspirational guy on YouTube. And he says macro patience and micro speed. That means have patience on the macro level, like, you know, the things that you want to achieve in the big picture usually take a lot of time, like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And micro speed means you execute things on a day-to-day level at a higher speed than usual. You know, just go fast at it, like go really fast, and you get things done way quicker. And he says like most people have it usually the other way around. They are really patient with their day-to-day processes, but they are not. They are impatient, or rather they want things way quickly in their big picture term. They want their stuff, you know, in like 1 or 2 years or 3 years. So that's what I've been trying to reverse my mentality into, focusing on the big picture, having my big picture goals, but trying to execute things on a day-to-day level way faster. I'm just like rambling here about stuff that I have in mind, and that's what I want these 100 Days of Comics episodes to be, you know, stuff that I have in mind while I'm making this project. So that's pretty much it for this episode of 100 Days of Comics, and those are my 2 pages, not episodes, 2 pages of 100 Days of Comics. In the next episode, I will be revealing the name of this project and the details about this project. So people, stay tuned, watch out, and we shall reveal the name of this project. So until then, I'll see you guys later.